Samsung just launched its brand new foldables for 2025, and this year we finally have some pretty big changes to the Z Fold7 and the Z Flip, as well as a surprise new third addition to the lineup, which we'll talk about later in this video. So let's start with the brand new Z Fold7, because this received one of the best updates because Samsung finally followed the trend. Make it as thin as humanly possible and make it feel like the size of a normal phone when you close it up. And they absolutely crushed it here. The new Z Fold7 is nearly as thin as its flagship counterpart, its normal phone, the S25 Ultra, when folded. And when you unfold it, it's razor thin, about as thin as the USB-C port on the Z Fold7. Now, the cover screen gets a little bit wider, which is always nice because, well, that's the part that feels the weirdest, especially over the last few years. It's definitely gotten better. I feel like the main goal for next year is to just try and get this cover screen more and more like a normal phone, quote unquote, as possible, that can also unfold into something bigger, which is what we have right now. Now, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold does an excellent job at this. Samsung is getting there, but it still needs just a little bit more work to get that cover screen to feel like just a regular slab phone. Now, speaking of unfolding, the inner display is now up from 7.6 inches to 8 inches, and it's wild that there are hardly any bezels at all. The only bezel here is actual plastic around the frame from basically preventing you from accidental touches the whole time. And it's great to look at, it's super edge to edge, and it feels very premium. So overall, the new Z Fold7 is about half the thickness of the original Samsung Galaxy Fold back in 2019, so 6 years ago. And you can even see the drastic difference from last year's Z Fold 6. The Armor Flex hinge is thinner and lighter this year, thanks to an enhanced water droplet design and newly implemented multi-rail structure that reduces visible creasing and strengthens durability by evenly dispersing stress, at least according to Samsung. The crease to me is still just as visible as it once was. But if you know me and foldables that have creases, you'll know that I really don't care. After like an hour of use, you really just don't notice it anymore. Now, one thing to note about the display, though, is that it does not support the S Pen this year. Samsung mentioned that after talking to its users, S Pen usage on the Fold was pretty low. And so removing the ability to use the S Pen allowed for the entire form factor to get thinner and smaller and lighter. And so I guess it's a fair trade-off, especially since I was one of those people who never used the S Pen on a Galaxy Z Fold. But there are people out there who live and die by it, I'm sure. And so if that is you, you're probably going to want to stick with the older models for now. As far as internals go, the two major things: processor, it's a Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, and there's a 4,400 milliamp hour battery. Now, the camera's got a bit of a bump this year, with the main camera finally getting up to that 200 megapixel sensor that's pretty similar to what's inside the S25 Ultra and also the S25 Edge. The software has been optimized for better compatibility with the larger display, especially with a lot of the AI tools from Galaxy AI. There's a lot of extra screen real estate, and so with Galaxy AI, there's newer floating windows. You can drag and drop AI-generated content across other windows, etc. Google Gemini, in my opinion, is still one of the best AI assistants and integrations that Samsung has done, and it's very much present on the new foldables this year, which is always great to see. I haven't really had a ton of time to check out a ton of these new features from the software perspective, but I look forward to doing so over the next few weeks. But the main stars of the show today were all about the hardware, basically, and all of the optimizations done to the hardware so that it feels bigger, but also smaller and thinner and more compact at the same time. And I can confidently say that if you're someone who thought foldables were too big in the past, too chunky, too bulky, these new form factors could very well change your mind. Now, I hope Apple is learning and leaning in this direction with its design for its foldable that is rumored to be coming out next year, and can make something just as thin and beautiful as the new Z Fold7. Now, the Z Flip7 also got a few nice upgrades, and it starts with the outer edge-to-edge flex window. It's now getting a bump up from 3.4 inches to 4.1, which is fantastic. It looks great. You can get a lot more information on that compact little screen on the front so that you don't always have to open up your phone. But my biggest gripe here is that even though Samsung is expanding the functionality year over year, I feel, it's just not enough. I still wish it would just let users rip the Band-Aid off and allow us to just run any app, any full app on that front window. Motorola does this. It's basically kind of got the same form factor on the front now as Motorola with the Razr, and I understand that not everything might be well optimized for it, but perhaps this gives developers the chance to get to work and get it to look good on that front display. And it would make things so much more useful. At least give users the option to sort of like force it to fit that aspect ratio, as opposed to just banning a lot of these apps and just giving you widgets and things on the front that are useful, but not nearly as useful as just being able to jump into a full app. Now, you do get some extra things this year. You do get the Now bar and the Now brief on the Flex window, which will give you travel info, calendar events, all of the integrations with Samsung, Google, and now third-party applications so that you can stay up to date on what's happening throughout the day and what's happening in the world around you at a quick glance on that Flex window. The camera app with the Flex window also gets a couple of nice updates. One of the things that I saw specifically is that you can actually just, if you're holding it with one hand, you can use your thumb along the left side there and just sort of swipe up and down to zoom in and out. But there's also hands-free auto zoom when the phone is propped up in flex mode, which is also really nice. Gemini will also make its way to the cover screen with the ability to use the cameras and sort of detect what it's looking at in the real world. And so this could be useful if, let's say, you are wearing an outfit and you want suggestions on maybe a different outfit or what goes with the outfit that you're wearing. You can ask Gemini and it'll use the cameras to kind of see what you're currently wearing and offer up some suggestions. When you decide you need more screen real estate, of course, you can flip it open and you'll get now a slightly bigger 6.9-inch display, which is up from 6.7 from last year. And it's a little bit wider too, which is always nice. Like I mentioned before, one of my other complaints with some of these other foldables is that they don't always feel like a normal slab style phone when they're in that specific form factor. And it always seems to be that, we're getting there little by little, and Samsung is definitely working towards getting there and being more like a traditional slab phone on the Flip, especially when it's unfolded. It was just a little too tall and too narrow, but we're finally starting to get into that pretty comfortable spot. The Z Flip starts at $1099 and comes in blue, jet black, and coral red, with a mint color being a Samsung.com exclusive. And this also applies to the Z Fold7, which will come in black, blue, and silver, but you also get that mint color as well. Now, the Z Fold will start at $1999, but if these prices are just way too high for you and you're not quite sure that you want to spend that much money on your first foldable, might I interest you in a slightly less expensive, though it's not a fold, a Z Flip7 FE, which basically just looks like a Z Flip6 from last year and comes in at a starting price tag of $899. So if you don't want anything to do with that bigger flex window and the redesigned Flip7, you can save a few $100 and get this, which will come in white or black. Personally, I would just shell out the extra like $200 and get the Flip7. I think that's just better in my opinion, but hey, that's just me. Lastly, there are some new watches this year with Samsung's new lineup of Watch 8. And this time we get a few different kinds like the Watch 8 and the Watch 8 Classic making a return in 2025. And it brings back that rotating bezel-y goodness, which I absolutely love to do. It's seriously pretty addicting to just rotate through the UI instead of having to swipe through it, which keeps your screen nice and clean. Now, I will be doing a full comparison between these watches and the Apple Watch, but there are a couple of things new this year that are worth pointing out, like the introduction of the antioxidant index, which is the first feature of its kind in a smartwatch, which enables you to measure the carotenoid levels in just 5 seconds by placing your thumb on the back sensors of the smartwatch. Not entirely sure how accurate this is because I have nothing else to really compare it to, but the guy who tested this for me apparently needs to eat more leafy green vegetables, but who doesn't, There's also a new vascular load feature which helps monitor the stress levels on your vascular system during sleep. And I really like the way Samsung presents a lot of this information to you on the phone in the health app there. It's presented in a very colorful and engaging way, and I think it's easier to just kind of follow along this way and see a lot of your important health stats. But that's Samsung Unpacked 2025 in a nutshell. These are the new foldables for the year. If you're sick of regular phones, if you're coming from an iPhone and want to switch to Android, then I would highly recommend checking these out. If I were to do so, I would be looking at the Z Fold7, no doubt about it, but would love to hear from you in the comments down below. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.